Go.
Yeah.
Picture.
Okay, welcome everyone tonight. This is Frank Stull's History of Riegel Ridge. Can everyone see this?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Frank Stull. He was the 7th and 8th grade social studies teacher at the Holland Township School for 31 years, from 1959 to 1991. He served in the social studies department as the chairperson. He's selected to Who's Who in American Education. Manager of the Riegel Ridge Pool for several summers. And he's a local historian with expertise in both history and geology.
Getting too late.
Great storyteller. He created the slideshow.
Slideshow, and this is slideshow. What are they for me to accept?
I'm Riegel.
Could you guys mute the ones that are listening?
Yeah.
We're getting a lot of noise here.
Yeah. Could everyone mute themselves at this point?
John Leidy Riegel was born in 1819 and died in 1893. He did more to change Finesville, Riegelsville, Warren Glen, and Hughesville, New Jersey than anyone before or after him. If we include his descendants, the area of great Riegel influence would also encompass Holland Township, Milford, Upper Black Eddy, and Frenchtown. Mr. Riegel operated the grist mill, sawmill, and oil mill in Riegelsville, New Jersey, but being anxious for a new challenge, he and 5 partners began making paper in 1862 at this Finesville site along the Musconetcong River.
In Finesville.
By 1865, Mr. Riegel was the sole owner, and he decided to move the operation to his Riegelsville, New Jersey location. Railroad tracks and the Delaware River passed right by this location. So successful was the mill at Riegelsville that in 1873, John L. Riegel added 3 new partners and built a mill at the Forge, which is now Warren Glen. Situated along the Musconetcong River, the mill had 2 paper-making machines, and the Lehigh Valley Railroad built a span along the river. The corporation was called the Warren Manufacturing Company.
Excuse me, Carl. Could you please, I believe it's at the top or the bottom, just mute everyone until you're done speaking.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Just bear with us while we figure out how to do that.
Okay.
We gotta minimize the screen, Larry. Or just make it, yes.
Yeah.
It's not perfect.
Now we get back to where you were.
I know, sorry, Boris. Go back here.
Yeah. No, it could be a cert.
Yes, I think though is sports bar figures.
Here, let me try that.
Could everyone please hit the mute button?
Yeah. I'm trying to find, we'll get back to the screen that has everyone.
Okay.
Oh, that's not it.
Me.
I don't know why it's not showing up. What's that one?
Yes, wasn't he?
That's PowerPoint.
State with a 3-word capital.
Oh, here we go. Here, this has participants start video mute. Love muting us. We go to participants. Maybe that's where you can mute everyone. Mute all. There we go.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. Hit X to get out of that. And now we can start again. Go back to maximize this full screen.
You won.
This one.
Three.
Yeah. What about view? Uh,
Try hitting the maximize next to the X at the top in the red bar. Not the X, that one. How about fit to window? Over by the Zoom. Right there.
Go to slideshow and then view current slide. One more over to the right from current.
Beautiful.
The speaker needs to unmute, please.
Carl? Carl, we're not getting any audio. Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah.
just jumped. Here. So I don't know, you had to admit that person. And then, okay. Dams were constructed above the Warren Glen and Hughesville mills, the impounded water being diverted into raceways, which fed water into the mills. This dam is downstream from the Warren Glen mill. Please bear with us.
Sure.
Okay. Why did it stop? Okay. That's really, the Warren Manufacturing Company was successful because of the high quality of its paper and the location of its mills, which were close to the Pennsylvania coalfields and two huge markets for paper, Philadelphia and New York City. John S. Riegel, the son of John L., was heading the company in 1907 when at Milford, New Jersey, 7 miles below Riegelsville, the Warren Manufacturing Company constructed its largest mill, a mill which would later have 9 paper-making machines and become the world's largest producer of glassine, a transparent paper highly resistant to grease. Industrial work was difficult. The mills were hot in summer, cold in the winter, the machines were noisy, and many of the men worked a different shift each week, and the work could be dangerous. But most felt they worked for a good company, were happy to have a job, and it was, as they said, steady work. Most of the workers and their families lived in company houses near the mills. The mill whistle wakened them, sounded at lunchtime, and signaled the end of the day shift. During World War II, it sounded air raid drills. In 1930, the Warren Manufacturing Company changed its name to Riegel Paper Corporation. Benjamin D. Riegel, grandson of the founder, was chairman of the board. Asked about the possibility of building some bowling alleys for the workers, he thought about it and decided bowling alleys wouldn't suffice. An especially warm and charismatic man, he'd built recreation centers for his textile workers in South Carolina and Georgia, and he'd do the same for his paper makers. Never mind that the Great Depression was cutting profits. He sent his boyhood friend and now General Superintendent George L. Bidwell to buy a site between the Warren Glen and Milford Mills. Reportedly, Mr. Bidwell remarked, "There's not an acre in Holland Township worth $300. Between the two mills, the New Jersey uplands meet the Triassic lowlands. Mr. Bidwell chose the uplands and purchased the southern summit and the slope, which meets the lowlands. The view is magnificent, and many visitors have gone so far as to remark, I never knew there was such a pretty sight in New Jersey. The area was very isolated. In 1938, between Anderson Road and just south of the present Township School, a distance of 1 1/4 miles, there were just 2 houses along Route 519. This as-ween photo of the entrance to what would become the recreation facility conveys the isolation of the area. The next 14 photos were generously donated by Jess Ween as Ween's widow. Mr. Riegel hired the noted architect James Gamble Rogers, and work began. Bob Weiss recalls building fires so the ground could be dug. Rocks were abundant, and because of their igneous nature, were excellent for construction. The men labored on what would later be called the community house, installing bowling lanes in the basement, and the Riegel Paper construction gang completed the baseball field and grandstand in May of 1938. In late spring of 1938, a year which saw Riegel Paper's net income drop 9% from the previous year and the textile mills do much worse, the facility was completed. What do we call this place? Reportedly, Ben Foos, a Riegel supervisor, remarked, it was built by Riegel and it's on a ridge. How about Riegel Ridge? The name was adopted. This view from the east, with autos in front of the community house, reflects the period. A series of postcards was produced. Here's the south patio with raised umbrellas, a rather country club look. There were 4 bowling lanes in the basement. 2 additional lanes were constructed after World War II. In the room, there were billiard and ping pong tables, quoits, shuffleboard, 2 service counters, and the coat rack, which could hold more than 400 coats. Down the hall were restrooms, locker rooms, showers, and a furnace room, a coal bin, and a storage area. The 35 by 35-foot lounge, the most elegant room in the building, had a huge fireplace, and among its furnishings were a 17 by 20-foot oriental rug, a rosewood Louis XIV table, once owned by Ogden Mills, U.S. Secretary of the Treasury, and one of the wealthiest men in the East, and a spinet piano. Currier and Ives etchings adorned walls, along with photos of Riegel's mills. 32 diners could be seated in the cafeteria. The cost of a hot turkey sandwich with gravy, grilled sweet potatoes, and coleslaw, 35 cents. But many hourly employees were making less than 40 cents per hour. The gymnasium was the finest anywhere in the area. It was the site of, among other things, athletic events, stockholder meetings, bingo, quarter century club, banquets, and plays performed on the 30 by 20-foot stage. And what a baseball diamond. Riegel went so far as to bring in sand from a foundry in Macungie, Pennsylvania, to increase the odds that infielders would get a true bounce. On June 4th, 1938, the day that Sigmund Freud left Austria to take refuge in London, Riegel Ridge was dedicated. As many as 5,000 people may have attended the activities. That afternoon, Mr. Riegel threw out the first ball before Riegel's papermakers played the Bangor Kazers. Now, Riegel's employees had a place to enjoy themselves away from the huge and noisy paper machines. Riegel Paper was one of the top paper manufacturers in the U.S., its niche being specialty papers. Benjamin DeWitt Riegel died at Riegel Ridge Lodge, now Bethany Ridge, in 1941. He was succeeded by his cousin, Mr. John Lawrence Riegel, an extremely able man of very high character. He would prove to be a good friend of Riegel Ridge. Soon, Riegel Ridge became a community center, not just a place for Riegel employees and their families. Shirley Phillips Gastoni, whose family farmed, said, Riegel was the gathering place. The Riegels brought culture to the area. Before the center opened, all we did was visit. Friday nights and special occasions. Did we skip a slide? It was the place you take company or just go to relax and have fun. Tell someone in Easton that you lived in Warren Glen and they'd ask, what's that? Telling them beyond Springtown didn't help, but tell them it's before you get to Riegel Ridge and they'd know. Friday nights and special occasions found the gym full of dancers. Dance bands such as Charlie Perello, Mark Hilburn, or Ken Brader traveled from Easton and provided the music. It was the big band era, and local bands played music made popular by the likes of Benny Goodman, Glenn Miller, Sammy Kaye, Tommy Dorsey, and many more. Perhaps this couple is jitterbugging to Boogie Woogie, 1938's top tune. Intermission was a good time to stroll over to the cafeteria and have a pecan sundae. Cost? 10 cents on sale. Others might be in the lobby or lounge, or maybe downstairs watching the bowlers. It was a warm evening. What could beat sitting with that special girl at a table on the south porch? I think this answers that question. Saturday nights, the gym belonged to as many as 300 square dancers. More often than not, Elmer Rush called the figures. Bowling was huge at Riegel Ridge and the 7-day-a-week activity. One year, Frances Lawback reported, the Riegel Ridge women won every event at the Easton Women's Bowling Association Championship. Pins were set by pin boys who might set over 100 games a day. In spite of all the excellent bowlers, there never was a 300-game roll at the Ridge. Also big at Riegel Ridge was the theater. This is a scene from Seven Sisters, performed in 1939. Brigadoon, shown here, The Sound of Music, Carousel, etc., played to standing room only crowd. This is Doris Weiss, starring in Mrs. Bob Cratchit in Dickens' A Christmas Carol. The annual Christmas party found children packed in the gymnasium. Riegel bussed the community's children to the center, where some received the finest present they'd get during the holidays. For a time, Riegel Ridge sponsored a boxing team. Later, wrestling became a very big draw. Riegel hosted an annual basketball tournament, which lasted all day. Teams came from Scranton and Allentown, Pennsylvania, as well as from the Trenton and Morristown, New Jersey area. Riegel's men's and women's teams excelled in local leagues. There was a men's chorus, women's chorus, and a mixed chorus. The choruses performed at Riegel Ridge, local churches, community functions, and on Easton radio station WEST. When the township school ran out of space for a time, students were bused to Riegel Ridge. The gymnasium and basement quickly became classrooms. Day camp was held each summer. Bused in from Frenchtown to Riegelsville and Warren Glen on buses chartered by Riegel Paper, this 1941 group is small compared with the 508 campers registered in 1959. Campers were taken on bus trips to such places as Willow Grove and Dorney Park and Bowman's Tower. Some summers they went on excursions up the Hudson River. There were overnight campouts, movies, softball games, checkers, volleyball matches, etc. Daily activities included crafts such as these directed by Emily Purcell Hosman and Emily Hennula. The camp nurse was always available. Here, Ruth Scheiding tends to a day camper. This photo of a wooded area looks like many other wooded areas. But from 1939 to 1941, this location above Warren Glen Mill was a swimming spot for campers. The paper company constructed changing facilities and trucked in sand for the riverbanks. A small dam was constructed and day campers were bused from Riegel Ridge. Someday Riegel Ridge may have a pool, Frank Smith. Riegel Ridge's first director told a young camp counselor. Frank and his wife Arlene supervised the activities at Riegel Ridge. They got the center off to an excellent start. The A on the windshield of this car is a gas rationing sticker. With the young man and some young women serving in the armed forces, activity at Riegel Ridge really slowed during World War II. But for 24 hours a day, airplane spotters occupied a shed outside the kitchen, searching the skies for enemy aircraft. Fortunately, none were ever spotted. In 1944, a Riegel Paper Corporation honor roll was dedicated at Riegel Ridge. It contained the names of more than 500 former employees, 9 of who had given their lives. Unfortunately, more names would be added before the war ended in September of 1945. After World War II, the paper company began selling lots south of the recreation center to its employees. The cost was $75 per lot, and the area filled in quickly. During World War II, the swimming area above Warren Glen Mill deteriorated. There was an obvious need for a community pool. Pictured is an early proposal. The Javes family opened its family pool to campers, an extremely generous act, but this is the second version. John Lawrence Riegel announced that he would donate $35,000 if the community would raise another $35,000. The pool would be named the Benjamin DeWitt Riegel after Mr. Riegel's cousin, the center's founder. The target of $35,000 was reached, and Mr. Riegel matched it. All of this occurred while Sailor W. Miller was director. He replaced Frank Smith in 1946. A former lieutenant commander in the U.S. Navy, Mr. Miller's philosophy was quite simple. Riegel Ridge is a nice place for nice people. He planned to keep it that way. And he did. The assistant director and later director was William Francis Case, known to everyone as Casey. His father had helped build Riegel Ridge. Much loved and highly regarded in the community, Casey was a special friend to all, but especially to the community's children. He embodies all that was good about Riegel Ridge. In 1955, the Benjamin DeWitt Riegel Memorial Community Pool was opened. With the selling of the Abrams farmland north of the center, the area filled in and the need for a pool was greater than ever. Beautifully situated on the side of Musconetcong Mountain, the pool was an immediate success. There wasn't enough money for a bathhouse, so B.D. Riegel's widow donated the funds and dedicated and attended the pool's dedication ceremony. Each weekday, hundreds of campers swam in the new pool, most unaware that their predecessors had swam in the Musconetcong a few years before. In In the early 1960s, a swim team was organized at Riegel Ridge. When meets were held, the pool was a beehive of activity. There was great camaraderie among Riegel swimmers and the opposition. Leanne Kitchen, on starting block number 3, asked her mother, Pat, if she could have a picnic. Sure, who's coming? Mom asked. The Belvedere swim team, was Leanne's response. So the Kitchens fed the entire opposing team. Swim meets were usually full of excitement, and the person most responsible for the team's success is Doris Brain, a lady with great commitment and a huge voice. Shown here offering encouragement to her swimmers. Doris's swimmers were successful and equally important, enjoyed swimming. Donald Hawkins succeeded Bill Miller as director in 1962 and also was instrumental in assembling the swim team. He'd tell any kid who'd listen about the benefits of participating in the swimming program. The annual water show was attended by hundreds of people. Talent was mostly local, with an act or two imported. This is the Riegel Ridge Float, which appeared in Frenchtown's 1967 Centennial Parade. Perched on the float were Miss Riegel Ridge, Debbie Mull, and her attendants, Darcy Brain and Donna Osborne. Of all spectator sports at Riegel Ridge, the most attended was baseball. Riegel's first team participated in the Bi-State League. They dominated in this league to the extent that attendance suffered. So in 1941, Riegel entered the East Penn League. Always competitive, but sometimes outmanned, Riegel was never able to win the league championship. The curtain shown here was pulled from the grandstand to the right and left field fences. If you wanted a good view, you paid. The team pictured here is the 1940 Bi-State Club. In 1947, Riegel qualified for the end of the season playoffs. The opponent was Souderton, Pennsylvania. For the opening game, bleachers were brought in from Lafayette College. Try to imagine more than 1,200 fans viewing a game here. It's local standout Bob Weiss, once called the Dizzy Dean of the Bi-State League, take the mound for the Papermakers. Weiss had won 16 straight games in the Bi-State League. Facing Bob Weiss was 5'6", 139-pound dynamo named Bob Shantz. 2 years later, he'd be pitching in the big leagues for Connie Mack's Philadelphia Athletics. In 1952, Shantz was the American League's most valuable player. In a game still talked about by longtime residents, Souderton won 4-2. In the late 1940s and early 1950s, fan attendance was sharply reduced at local ball games. Riegel entered the Tri-County League. The quality of baseball remained excellent, and those who played did so for their love of the game, not because they'd be playing before a huge crowd. Riegel Ridge also had a team of young men in the Suburban League. Coached by Casey, they were highly successful. Perhaps the most amazing individual performance ever in a game at Riegel Ridge occurred in 1946, when Jack Fisher, the third from the right in the back row, pitched a no-hitter and struck out 18 batters in a 7-inning game against Stewartsville. Later, Jack managed the bowling lanes at Riegel Ridge. This is Riegel's 1957 entry in the Intermediate League, coached by John Leidy. Years before, John's father, Warren, asked to play sports at Riegel Ridge. "Give me a job and a place to live, and I'm yours," he answered. He got both. Riegel Ridge once fielded a football team of high school-age players, but this didn't last. However, elementary school students playing for the Riegel Ridge Rams became a big Sunday afternoon draw. A community band was assembled, uniforms provided, and among other places, performed at halftime of Riegel Ridge Rams football games. Notice the new development to the left and behind the grandstand. In 1970, Riegel paper suffered its first loss in years and felt it could no longer support the recreation center. So the company gave the facility to the Hunterdon County YMCA in Flemington. Riegel paper expanded too fast, ran into cost overruns at a joint venture pulp mill being constructed in Louisiana, and no longer had the resources to remain in the paper-making business. The company, once one of the best-known paper manufacturers in the United States, and a company which sold paper to some of America's most recognizable corporations, began looking for a buyer. In 1972, Riegel Paper Division of Riegel Paper Corporation was sold to Federal Paper Board. The local company, which had started 110 years before, ceased to exist. Although 3 of Riegel's former local mills are still operating in 1998, the Riegelsville, New Jersey mill, which had been closed in 1982, has been leveled by its owner, Fort James, formerly James River. For 22 years, the Riegel Ridge Community House was operated by the Hunterdon County YMCA. When the Y closed, the building was, as a local reporter wrote, dilapidated. Those who remember the glory days found the boarded windows and no trespassing sign particularly galling. What to do? Bob Brain, local amateur artist, displays his painting of Riegel Ridge. From 1955 on, Bob had participated in numerous activities at Riegel Ridge. Always willing to help, Bob built the swim team's starting blocks, appeared in plays for which he built the sets, etc. Such people have great appreciation for what they were able to enjoy at the center. Concerned about the future of the building, the Holland Township Historic Preservation Commission commissioned historian Dennis Bertland to submit an application requesting that Riegel Ridge be declared a historic site. Riegel Ridge now appears on both the state and national registers of historic places, thanks to the Commission and Bertland's efforts. Frank Stull is over on the left. Mr. William Riegel came to the area in 1995 to help dedicate the center's new sign and to tour the building. The great-grandson of the founder and son of John Lawrence Riegel, Mr. Riegel and Mrs. Catherine Emery, Benjamin D. Riegel's daughter, have been extremely supportive of our restoration efforts. Here, Mr. Riegel talks with Doris Sprain and John Bonham. And here he speaks with Dan Etzold, who later became a president of the Board of Governors. In this photo, the group which toured the building with Mr. Riegel stands outside the entrance to Riegel Ridge. Once the Riegel Ridge move was the site of the old timers' picnics. It still is, though in these politically correct times, we prefer the term senior citizens. Whichever they are, the group, which calls themselves our Riegel Ridgers, have raised thousands of dollars so that today's youths will be able to enjoy Riegel Ridge as they did. Carol Teagar is pictured at her brother's reception held in the Riegel Ridge Lounge. In her youth, she was Carol Osborne. She loved Riegel Ridge. Today, she's the lady who organized the Riegel Ridgers. The Riegel Ridgers meet monthly at the Milford Firehouse. Among their members are Mary Smith, who met her husband-to-be at Riegel Ridge, and Mary Lippencott, whose 14 children enjoyed Riegel Ridge. Barb Culp is to the right. The little girl to the right in this scene from Seven Sisters is Bessie Christie. Now she's Bessie Davis and recalls bingo, dances, performing in plays, and working in the Riegel Ridge cafeteria. Her husband, Chuck, bowled, collected tickets, coached, attended athletic events, etc. Of good humor, Chuck keeps reminding us to hurry up with the restoration. We don't have much time left, he chides officials. Riegel's 1947 youth basketball team played in the Hunterdon County League. Second from the right is Bob Phillips, who on occasion walked the 4 miles from his home to Riegel Ridge. More than 50 years later, this is Bob Phillips. The photo proves that walking is indeed good for you. The Riegel Ridgers have sold sweatshirts and t-shirts, raised nearly $3,000 raffling 2 quilts made by member Claire Gano, and sponsored several bus trips to Atlantic City, all to help the restoration project. Their love for Riegel Ridge and their enthusiasm have been contagious. John Shaffer was the 3rd man hired to work on the Riegel Ridge construction project. He'd take wheelbarrows full of concrete up scaffolding. Later, he worked for the paper company, making glassine for Tasty Cake, black paper for Kodak, paper for Kellogg's, etc. He'd like to once again play bingo at Riegel Ridge. Without the support of Holland Township Mayor John DeSaro and the Township Committee, we'd be nowhere. Mayor DeSaro appears at every function which assists Riegel Ridge and has been extremely supportive. In 1997, appointed a 7-member Board of Governors, which is headed by Dan Etzold and Mike Klamick. Mayor DeSaro attends monthly board meetings. Mr. Paul Felder, longtime local resident, is the project's architect. Along with Dennis Bertland, he had prepared the grant application, which landed a $475,000 state grant. Mr. Felder and his firm submitted an extensive preservation plan to the state of New Jersey, which quickly got the state's stamp of approval. It soon became apparent that the YMCA had greatly altered the community house. For starters, unwanted counters would have to be removed from the lobby. The task was formidable, but after much sweat, dust, and many sore muscles, the lobby was opened up and the drop ceiling was removed. A handful of local residents circle Saturdays on their calendars. It's the day they spend at Riegel Ridge. Here are Ken Vogel and Mike Klamick removing an unwanted partition in the basement. Saturday after Saturday, they do heavy and dirty work. It's been no picnic for these volunteers. Bringing lights down the basement hallway, they've gone from room to room, removing unwanted material. One of the most grueling and dirty tasks was the removal of the deteriorated bowling lanes. The project's cost was reduced by thousands of dollars as a result of these volunteers' work. Of course, a restoration project is required to save original fixtures. Saved. The sconces and large light fixture in the lounge qualify. The bands don't, they're gone. But little of value was left behind. A local resident remarked that the building had been pillaged. Many years ago, Mr. John Bonham asked people at the Y what they were going to do with a pile of framed pictures from the Riegel Ridge days. Throw them out, was the response. John asked if he could have several of them. The Y agreed, and John and his wife, Ginny, have donated them to the new community center. Willard and Mary Berger did the same thing with photos they rescued. In 1944, Riegel paper dedicated a World War II honor roll at Riegel Ridge. It was placed on the wall of the lobby. Later, it was removed and stored at the Milford Mill, and then saved from the scrap heap by the Papermakers Union and hung at Union headquarters in Warren Glen. Ed Stahy, president of the union, asked the membership if they'd consider returning the honor roll to Riegel Ridge. The members felt it was a good idea, though they hated to part with it. It will hang in the Riegel Ridge lobby again. Most heart-wrenching is the loss of B.D. Riegel's portrait. It was donated to the center by Riegel employees after Mr. Riegel's untimely death in 1941. Mrs. Emery, his daughter, has donated a replacement. We are grateful to all who have donated items. The original of this does hang at the Riegelsville Inn. Gradually, the fundraising thermometer rose. Shown here at nearly $450,000, the $475,000 goal was to complete. Phase 2 had been reached. A follow-up $250,000 $150,000 grant request has been submitted. Once an industrialist, Benjamin D. Riegel had a dream, which was fulfilled. The Riegel family papers read, Ben's outstanding contribution of beauty for a community is Riegel Ridge in New Jersey. He enjoyed watching the construction as he did factories and farms. From the building area, there is a magnificent view, including the Delaware River Valley to the southwest. Longtime residents such as Doris Weiss, who's the actress who portrayed Mrs. Bob Cratchit in Christmas Carol, and her husband Bob, who's the Dizzy Dean of the Bi-State League, hoped the facility, which was once the model for industrial recreation centers, will once again provide recreation for the community's residents. And the former actors, athletes, pin boys, bowlers, ticket takers, ball boys, dancers, singers, etc., will find contentment in the knowledge that the no trespassing sign has been removed from the community house and that new and future generations will find the same joy at Riegel Ridge that they once knew. When this occurs, their dream too will be fulfilled. This concludes the end of the slideshow. We would like to, since this was done quite a few years ago, we'd like to update listeners. Since the original rehabilitation of Riegel Ridge, Holland Township has continued to improve this beautiful and unique community asset with the following projects. Restored the terrace, which had been closed to the public for many years. This significantly expands the space for parties, weddings, and other events. Built a state-of-the-art fitness center in the lower level where the bowling alleys were previously. Rehabilitated the picnic grove. Rehabilitated the stage, which had been sealed off from the public area for years. Installed a new floor in the full gymnasium. Restored 56 historic windows while installing interior storm windows and making the operation of the building more sustainable. Painted the exterior of the community center. And the restoration of the grandstand is in the planning stage. All of this was done while maintaining the historic character of the site. And speaking of directors, Jessica Neglia has been the director of the community center for almost 10 years now. She has a degree in exercise physiology and has been teaching fitness classes for more than 20 years. Under her leadership, the fitness center was completely renovated and more fitness classes added, including an indoor cycling program. The summer camp has grown by leaps and bounds. When she started it at Riegel Ridge Community Center, it was a small summer recreation program that ran for only a few weeks. And with her amazing staff, it grew to a fully American Camp Association accredited camp with almost 200 kids a week. Holland's stewardship of Riegel Ridge has been nominated for a 2020 New Jersey Historic Preservation Award. This concludes the slideshow. Thank you everyone for listening and seeing.
Thank you, Carl. Does anyone have any questions? Comments?
Yeah, meet everyone.
I raised my hand. You can tell everybody they can raise their hand down at the bottom of the participant list. And first of all, I want to thank you tremendously for this presentation. I'm a little froggy here. Yeah, Mom and Dad were mentioned a few times throughout the presentation. I feel like, and you're going to recognize this because I'm sure you all feel the same way. When I tell people where I grew up and they have no idea what I'm talking about. And I say New Jersey, of course, the first reaction is Jersey, what exit? And of course I say, you have no idea. And I have tried on a number of occasions to explain what we had. And it sounds contrived, it sounds, it couldn't possibly be, you're exaggerating. And for those who live near me, I have a plethora of pictures. Not only was my dad probably one of the best baseball players in the area ever, many of the photographs you saw, he took. If you go into the lobby, you'll many of the shots Dad took. He was an amateur photographer and a very good one. And you know, if you go to speaker view and you blow me up, and you can go to speaker view up at the top of the screen. I don't know whether this was shown, but you may recognize this gentleman. That's Sailor Bill himself, Bill Miller. The picture you saw of Casey, he took as well. And my sister Judy and I had the incredible good fortune of all but 1 year when I went to Milford for 6th grade, while my dad was considering moving to Mobile, Alabama, along with one of the machines that Scott Paper bought. But we lived on top of the Ridge Hill with some of you and could walk over there in 5 minutes or ride our bikes. And when I say that we were fortunate, it almost sounds like it doesn't do it justice, what we had as kids and even young adults. And I'm so thrilled that it's being restored. I'm not sure if any of you remember Frankie Miller. He was the son of Bill and Sue Miller. He wrote a book. Some of you may be familiar with it. Frenchtown High. I saw it on my sister's coffee table a few years ago. I said, what in the heck is that? And with a little bit of research, I found out that this man, Victor Christian, is none other than Frankie Miller. And he wrote a book about how his family moved from the Scranton area to Frenchtown, where they were both teachers, and then they were talked into, and I believe I missed that part of it. I was searching for pictures where they moved up and became, they ran the Ridge. And I had a couple of exchanges with Frankie via email, and he remembered me, and he had something interesting to say that I think you'll find kind of remarkable. He knew how much the Riegel Ridge experience meant to the area. He said, but Jack, you had the benefit of going home to your house in the evening, and I was upstairs listening to bowling balls at 10:30 at night. And which he said it in an amusing way, but I think you get the drift, that they lived right upstairs, and those old bowling alleys, you could hear them a mile away. Well, look, I've talked enough. I'm going to turn it over to the rest of you. I am just so happy and grateful, and thank you to the folks at the library for putting this together. Frank Stull was my 7th grade teacher at down at Holland. It's all yours, guys.
Well, this is Pam Eichel. I have something to say as well. Ever since I saw this invitation to this meeting, I've been reminiscing about my time at Riegel Ridge. I
Sorry,
think
I don't-
my fondest memory is ice skating in the wintertime when they would put water on the basketball court and freeze it, and we could skate to our heart's content. And then right under the bleachers was this little
Right.
room.
My backyard.
We had a potbelly stove in there where we could go in and get warm. I have so many fond memories, and this presentation just brings them all back. My dad worked at Warren Glen Mill. This has just been heartwarming for me to have all of these memories. It's making me fill up. Thank you all. That was excellent. And Mr. Stull was also my 7th grade teacher. I had no idea that he was a historian. I just knew he was a great guy, wonderful teacher. Again, thank you.
Anyone else have questions or comments or memories they'd like to share?
I just wanted to thank everybody for attending. It was great to see familiar faces watching. It's certainly great to see old pictures of the ridge where I grew up and went to swim team for years. Wonderful to see Doris Brain, see Casey, see Miller, Sailor Miller, who was pretty hardcore at some times. Of course, we were kids always trying to get away with anything we could. And great to see faces, and it was certainly the greatest time of my life on the ridge.
Make sure. What are nice, you guys nice? Here you go. Take it for the corn. Oh, that's right, in the corn. That's it.
Kent Williver here. My dad, Pete Williver, when he got out of the Navy after World War II, went to work for Riegel paper, and we lived above the ridge, then later below the ridge. My brother Keith and I grew up there in the 50s and 60s, and it was really the start of our young manhood. One thing I was very appreciative of, thank you, Larry LaFevre, by the way, was my classmate. We played in the band together, and Jack Weiss and I were on the championship football team together. So it's nice to see their names and know that they're still active. One thing that I appreciated was no one asked for money, but I would like to know if for any of us that would like to send a donation to continue efforts such as this, which were so entertaining and nostalgic and extremely well done, I thought. Perhaps would it be appropriate to send a donation to the Holland Library to support efforts like this?
Oh, my goodness. Well, thank you very much for that offer. This is a free program, but any donation would certainly be greatly appreciated. And thank you very much for offering.
Good idea, Ken. Thanks. It's Larry. I'm glad you made it this time. And I wanted to tell you
Larry,
something.
thanks for a wonderful effort. Are you
Oh,
still
you're
playing
welcome.
saxophone?
No, are you?
No, I'm not, but I still have mine.
But I started
Maybe
playing
when I retire.
during the lockdown. I started playing flute, Native American flute. So, but I wanted to tell you, Carl Molter lives on your old house on Ellis Road.
Oh, wonderful.
Show tonight.
That was a good house.
Yeah, he left already, or else he'd say something. But
I got a few memories to share. I'm a little bit younger than a lot of you, but I grew up in the 70s at the YMCA, swimming every day. I would ride my bike there and then swim, play basketball. I played football for the Riegel Ridge Rams every year that I could. I've really got to use the facilities a lot. In high school, I played basketball there, and I also worked there when I was a senior in high school, tried cleaning up the grounds a little bit. And unfortunately, I was there when they put that lobby, that desk in the front, and then they closed off the stage and put a locker room up there. That was a horrible decision, but it was still a great facility. And, you know, the pool was always fantastic. You know, the community. My dad had worked at Hughesville Mill, and he was actually a rock picker at the golf course before they opened. He was picking rocks. Just great memories. And I never knew that it was so dilapidated for a while there. You know, looking back, you know, I could see why they closed for a while. You know, last time I was there was in '84 when I was a senior in high school. And, you know, it was kind of going down then, but they're doing some renovations for like the fitness areas. But I can understand why it did get so worn down and torn down. And, you know, thank God the community came together and got it rolled again. And, you know, I'm looking forward to go back there and seeing what the community did. It's really exciting for me. And Mr. Stull was my 7th grade teacher as well. And Ken Williver's brother Keith was the gym teacher of mine.
Oh. Did you hear that?
Does
I'll tell Keith that we saw you.
Okay, he always used to yell at us when we said his Jeep was a truck. It's not a truck, it's a Jeep.
Hey, can I jump in again real quickly? I have some really great pictures, and I have them in my hard drive. I just put in chat my email address. If any of you are interested in some of the pictures that I have from 1938 to original spotlight covers, Christmas cards that have illustrations of the lodge on them. And I have incredible, and my dad took these. These are pictures of summer camp. And the resolution is so crisp that you can just look at it and you can pick yourself out. And I can go right to Kent Williver in here. For sure. And if you want these,
And you find me?
Sure. I'll email them to you. And if you bring them up on your computer screen, you are going to be amazed when you blow them up. You're going to see every burgeoning little pimple on your face. But I really do have a lot of great shots that Dad took. And thank you all. So much fun. Great seeing you, Lou. Remember a few exchanges we had, I think, in the past year, didn't we? When you were still were you up at Blair? Where were you? You're muted.
I was working at Blair Academy.
Yeah, right. You were at Blair.
Yeah, and I read I read the Frenchtown High book. I found it really interesting, trying to figure out who was who. I'm just a little bit younger, and so I missed some of that, but it was fun. And I had written a piece, you know, for the Blair Review about growing up in a community. Like, until I got to college, I didn't realize like how ordinary we were, but how extraordinarily lucky we were to grow up in an area. And people paid a lot of money for the things that we took for granted, like tennis, swimming, all these things that we had at our disposal. It didn't really dawn on me until I got older, like how fortunate we really were to have all these things. I just took it for granted. I suppose many of us did when we were 10 and 12 and 14, but it was really impressive.
Did you see your little face at the bottom of that midget
did.
football team? Did you see yourself?
Yeah, right next to Alan Hamlin.
Right.
And all those guys. I did. I think I was a bit of a pain in the butt for all the older guys who.
Oh, I loved your dad. Loved him.
Thank you.
Our last year of football at the Rams, they actually gave out those jerseys to a bunch of us. And I had a few of those. I used to wear them to school with the stripe on the sleeve.
That's great.
It was awesome.
So I don't know if this is true, but I heard that the Riegel men couldn't decide whether they wanted the Princeton stripes, which they had, or the Lafayette maroon and white. So it was a combination of the two. So we got the maroon and white, but the Princeton tiger stripes on the sleeves. I don't know if that's true. That's what I heard.
Mm-hmm.
My vivid memory of midget football, we beat the Easton All-Stars 2 years in a row when I was 11 and 12. Well, and I still have the Easton Express article with pictures from 1958. It's just.
Were you the quarterback?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
Yes, I was, Bucky. Oh, Lord.
Folks, we have about 7 minutes left on our Zoom subscription tonight, but before, and we'll use all of it. So if we just disappear, you'll know what happened. But before we go, I just want to thank Carl and Larry for all the work they've done putting this together, and they've repeated this. And both times we've had so many folks share their memories, and it's been a great program. We really, really do appreciate Carl and Larry and everyone who attended tonight. I mean, we can actually consider this a nationwide program because the last time we had about 5 states, people from 5 states, and tonight we have people from 6 different states. So thanks so much for attending. And also, I just wanted to let you know, if anyone wants to make a donation to the library, it's Holland Township Free Public Library, 129 Spring Garden Road, and that's in Milford, New Jersey, 08848. And we've got 5 minutes left, so go ahead and share your memories.
You should open up a Venmo account.
We're thinking about that also.
Oh, yeah, you should.
How can we see this on the cloud?
We will put it on our YouTube channel. Just you can email me and I can send the instructions to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
We appreciate the library. Good night, everybody.
Thank
Night.
you.
Larry
night from
LaFevre, it was
Rhode Island.
good catching up with you a couple years ago, Larry.
Yeah, same here, and I think I still have your email, but
Damn it.
we'll be in touch about the photos.
You
I
bet.
don't want to get that message to him. No.
I have a ton of pictures. Ton.
Oh, thank you very much. Anybody else? 4 minutes left if you want to share some memories or catch up with someone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Yeah.
Thank you. Good night. Try to catch our next program on October 28th. We'll see you again.
You bet.
Mm-hmm.
It was so good looking when he was younger.